Yo people, hope you're all doing well and welcome to a new video. In this video we're going to focus on many ways that you can make gil without ever needing to use crafting or gathering. I've made videos previously around how to make gil which included both crafting and gathering, however I understand that it's not for everyone, so we will look at some efficient methods that require neither. If you're someone that enjoys farming fates, then you will probably already know about this method. There is a shared fate system in Endwalker which basically tracks the number of fates that you've completed within each area. When completing a fate, you will receive a currency called bicolor gemstones, and these gemstones can be traded into gemstone vendors across any of the Endwalker zones. If you open up the menu, you will be shown your rank for each zone. You will need to complete 60 fates in that area in order to achieve the max rank. Whilst you're attaining your ranks in each zone, you can also spend the gemstones that you attain at any of the gemstone vendors in any of the areas. So there are a number of high-end crafting materials that you can buy which are only attainable through this method, so as you can guess they are fairly expensive. Just use Universalis to see which material is selling for the most at the time of spending your gemstones, and then grab a bunch of them to sell on the market board. As a crafter myself, I just buy any material for a recipe that I'm planning to craft for that day. The higher your rank is in a specific zone, the more items that will be available from the vendor. However, don't worry too much about this as you only need rank 1 in order to purchase the materials in question. Rank 1 is achieved through completing the MSQ in that area. Once you've achieved max rank in all of the Endwalker zones, in other words completing 60 fates in each zone, then you will unlock a gemstone vendor in Old Charlene. Once you have this vendor unlocked, this is where your endgame fate farming begins. So this vendor will sell bicolor gemstone vouchers which you can use to purchase some super expensive items such as the demon wings and the Wyvern mount, which both sell for over 50 million currently. These require 500 bicolor gemstone vouchers which also sell for around 100k each on the market board and are also attainable from this vendor. So you can either choose to farm these vouchers and sell them, which I will do personally, or you can save up these vouchers and spend them on some of the expensive glam items which you can then sell later. Another thing that you can do to make money is to farm Eureka and Bozjan. This is also a viable method to level your characters from 70 to 80 in Eureka and 80 to 90 in Bozjan, so it's a good way to level whilst being able to make some gil at the same time. Doing fates and events in this content will reward you with lockboxes. These lockboxes can then be traded in for random loot rewards. It's best to have a look at the loot drop table from the Eureka and Bozjan boxes in order to see what you'd prefer to farm and which items are selling for the most, as prices can fluctuate a bit. But you can expect to get some rare mounts, unique glamour, and also some expensive dyes, along with some other things that you can sell. For the next method, we'll be revisiting some old extreme content. There are some trials that are extremely profitable if you go in and farm with everyone knowing what to do. For example, you can farm Hades for the material drops which are used to craft weapons. These materials are currently being sold at around 950k plus. You can also desynthesize the weapons that drop with a chance to get the rare materials from them. The most important thing here is making sure that everyone knows the mechanics needed to clear the boss with a smaller amount of people so that you can get more kills per hour. Also, you can check out some of the level 70 extreme content as some of these materials are also expensive. Next, we've got gardening. I won't go into too much detail on this one as I've got a full video on gardening and have also mentioned this method in my last video. But basically this is a great method as you will be generating gil for a very low amount of effort. The 3 items that I focus on growing are glazed nuts, jutes, and Thavnarian onions. These will net a good amount of gil, so you can always change after you finish growing one set. If you want a more detailed description on how to plant the seeds and so on, feel free to check out my gardening guide here. Next we got Tomestones. I think this one is pretty much standard across the board, so I'll just briefly touch on it just in case you don't know. If you cap out on your poetics, then you can trade these in for unidentified ores and get Thanalan top soul freeze. Sell these on the market board or save them and use them for when you're gardening. Also, if you cap out on your aphorism tomestones, then head over to this vendor in Radzatan and purchase whichever crafting material is highest at the time. This isn't going to make you millions, but it will keep your gil ticking in. Using seals to purchase items that can sell for a decent amount on the market board is also a good way to just constantly make gil whilst doing your daily roulettes. Any loot that you get, just hand it into your grand company and scout the available items that you can purchase to sell on the market board. This is why I always say that if you're doing roulettes, don't skip on any of the items, just make sure you greed on anything that you can't need. So typically I spend my seals on ventures that I use for my retainers, and I also buy some coke to sell. This is not going to make you millions, of course, but it's a good way to keep the guild ticking in again whilst you're doing your usual activities. And that brings me on to my next method, which is to use your retainers to just bring you back some gil. So if you have retainers leveled, you can send them out on ventures to pick you up some material to sell on the market board. To my knowledge, most people send out retainers on quick ventures with high item level in the hopes of getting back some good drops like general black dyes and white dyes, for example. However, I've done this in the past and the pure RNG of it sometimes doesn't really work in your favor. Sometimes you might go a month without even seeing one dye. So instead, what I do is send my retainers out to fetch key materials that are used in popular recipes. Popular recipes are those that will often be crafted all the time and also being sold. For example, raid potions, raid food, leveling recipes for Isgrad restoration, crafting foods and potions, and so on. This is where you will need to identify what is selling currently for a good price, along with how many of that material your retainer will bring back. Just do some quick math to see what is most profitable. Sending your retainer to get them every hour is super low effort and will generate you some good gil whilst you're off doing something else. So now let's look at treasure maps. Treasure maps are a great way to pull in some gil. If you go in with a small group of friends, you can comfortably clear these maps and hope for some good drops. There are a few ways to get maps, one of which requires gathering. If you do have gatherers leveled, then you can head to Lakeland and just gather a few nodes before one pops for you. This has a reset time of 18 hours, so you can just stock them up in the meantime. You can also get a treasure map once a week from completing and handing in your Chloe book. Otherwise, you can just purchase them on the market board. Overall, treasure maps can be a fun time with friends whilst hunting for some rare loot. Now let's look at vendor and market flipping. So this method is one that requires some gil to start with, depending on what you're going to focus on. If you're going to do some basic vendor flipping, the logic behind this is that there are basically more people than you think that don't know that a lot of items can be purchased from vendors. You can turn this into your favor by finding items that are selling consistently on a market board that you can buy for a small amount of gil. I have more info on this in my last video. There are multiple vendors that you can use, whether it be housing merchant vendors, vendors locked behind beast tribes, gear and weapon vendors, etc. I won't mention every single item that I sell from vendors, but just know that you can make a lot of gil using this method. This method can be extremely profitable on Fridays when the fashion report resets. A lot of the items are either craftable or purchasable from vendors, and you can just buy them and put them up on the market board. You'll be pretty surprised at how much you'll be able to sell. Now for market flipping, this requires a bit more knowledge of the market and quite a lot of gil. The more gil you have, the more risk you can take and the more reward that you will receive. You will need to understand the times at which things sell the most, things to invest in for future patches, etc., and what items consistently sell for a good amount. You can make easy millions by being productive and just stacking the right items. I'll give you an example. Prior to Endwalker being released, I purchased a bunch of general black and white dyes for around 300 to 350k each. Once the patch had released, I waited for a while and sold these at 600k each. I also did the same with Thavnarian onions, which sold for double the price after the expansion release. A few weeks ago, I also purchased around 1000 Moonlight Aethersands, which were selling just under 1k each, and 2 weeks later, these were selling at 1.7k each. Now, obviously, at this moment in time, we know that 6.2 is around the corner, which means new craftable gear and new recipes are going to be released. We could also see some new glamour items too. This is the perfect time to start stocking up on popular materia used in pentamelding and level 90 crafting materials that may be used in the recipes. Some materials have already gone up slightly in price, but it's still not too late to invest. I will most likely make a video on this later to show what exact items I've been stocking up on. Other things that you can constantly market flip are expensive mounts, glamours, materials used for things like raid potions, for example Moonlight Aethersands that I mentioned before, and other rare expensive materials used in popular crafts such as immutable solutions. To be able to do this effectively though, Universalis will help a ton. This will basically allow you to scout market boards across other servers with ease and hopefully try and find some good deals. Lastly, let's look at the Tome event. So the recent Tome event has been a great way to make some quick gil and can still be used to make a good amount of gil. This is a method that you want to take advantage of as soon as possible. The longer the event goes on and the more people that find out about the quickest method means that the tomes will be easier to get, so inevitably the rewards that you can spend these tomes on won't be as valuable. Prices have already dropped by about 50%, so you'd want to get on it as soon as possible. The quickest method by far is to queue for Aurum Veil as 3 blue mages and a tank. There are some essential skills that blue mages need. For example, I'd say the mandatory skills would be Ram's Voice, Ultra Vibration and Missile, and the ones that are important but not mandatory would be Angel Whisper, Final Sting, Hydro Pull and Ethereal Mimicry. Any blue mage without these mandatory skills will drastically reduce the kill time, so be sure to have these skills if you're queuing as a blue mage to not waste other people's time. You can speed through the dungeon in just under 4 minutes, which gives back 4 tomes, so it should take you just under an hour to get back 50 tomes. 50 tomes is what you can use to buy the mount, for example, which is currently going for 700k. There are also some other items that you can sell, for example the minion. Just have a look through and see which one's selling for the most at a time. And that brings our video to an end. So I know that there are other methods out there, for example Materia Transmuting, Farming, Heaven on High and Palace of the Dead, but I wanted to only mention methods that I've used myself. As I can only play for a limited amount of time and also being a crafter, there are some methods that I just don't have, physically the time to delve into all of them, so I just stick to the ones that are most efficient for me. Nevertheless, I hope this video has helped you to see many different ways that you can make some good gil without needing to use any crafting or gathering, and if you have any useful methods that you would like to share, please comment below. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.